It's here, Season 14 of Apex Legends, and it has one of the biggest shifts when it comes to the meta and overall playstyle since maybe back during the Season 2 days. There's a lot to know. Let's get right to it. Relic or Skulltown has returned in its glorious form, and it crosses the nostalgia factor and viability factor pretty well, I'm not gonna lie. Loot on this POI is decent, but I do want to recommend that you land adjacent to the actual town. Landing on the wall and then rotating in from height allows for a lot more survivability, and if you can, take high ground on top of the skull to better drop and eliminate those that are below you. Rotating out of Relic kind of depends on your dropship path, but Market is always going to be a great spot to link up to, and Gauntlet also is really incredible now that you are not so much funneled in over there like you used to be. A little more on Relic later, but this POI is definitely for those that are looking for a lot of kills if they can get out of there alive. Speed of play sees a pretty massive adjustment for Season 14, and it's not necessarily making things feel quicker, but rather more methodical, planned out, and a little bit less chaotic. Since the ring did see a 200% reduction in the time it takes to start shrinking to 60 seconds, you'll now want to be mega careful about landing at edge spots, and this is especially the case on larger maps like Stormpoint. If you are someone looking to go very far for safer landings, you'll have a considerable amount of less time to loot, which means you're going to have to move a little bit quicker, or you are just going to take more damage from the ring. This is accentuated by the fact that Ring 1 now does 1 more damage per tick. The biggest tip to know is to be mindful of your landing location and try to land a little bit more central, or at least near rotation objects such as balloons. One of the benefits of this may be healthier mid games, since players do need to move in sooner than later. It is not too surprising that the weapon meta is shifting, and it is shifting in big ways, but if you have been living under a rock at this point, we've got a new legend, Vantage, who centers around long-range play, the G7 return to the ground, and the Skull Piercer coming back into the game, which benefits both the Wingman and the Longbow, but now, for the first time ever, also the 30-30 repeater. The 30-30 in particular is going to be a demon weapon this season, and I think we're going to see a lot of these being used. Not only does the Skull Piercer massively benefit this thing, it also now permanently comes with the dual shell hop-up. It's going to be one of the best weapons in the game for consistent and continual damage farming and just getting higher damage games. Kings Canyon as a whole sees massive improvements and buffs that you'll want to take advantage of. For one, Explosive Hold saw a minor nerf as there's blue attachments in there now, and there's less gold magazines. This means landing on these holds or prioritizing them is not as big of a play as it once was. However, loot across the entire board saw massive improvements, and more or less abandoned POIs will see a nice little resurgence. You'll absolutely want to check out sleeper landing spots such as Runoff and Hydro. Improved loot makes these really great spots for wanting safer landing spots with a little easy rotations to Airbase or Spotted Lake and Labs or Cage. On the other side, if you like utilizing a lot of the jump towers to get around faster, there's been a removal of 5 of these towers. The one adjacent to Gauntlet, south of Market, west of Repulsor, near Capacitor, and the one near the rig. So if you previously liked to loot up and then get initial kills with these balloon towers, note that it's not going to be quite as fast as it used to be. We are going to get to laser sights shortly, but another thing that is shifting with the meta is going to be the secondary meta. The Peacekeeper will still be a great option, but SMGs getting laser sights and overall just getting adjusted makes them feel like a much more extreme close range option than a semi-hybrid option. The real thing we need to talk about though is the EVA 8 shotgun. The EVA 8 sees a pellet being removed, but the damage per pellet was also increased, and it's also getting a massive fire rate increase. In addition to this though, a bigger emphasis is now placed on your backup weapon, as they did nerf hip fire on both assault rifles and SMGs, but more specifically, this is going to apply to assault rifles, as you won't be able to just pull out your flatline or 301 and be as accurate and deadly as you once were. Season 14's new legend is going to be Vantage, and her ultimate sniper rifle is best used in a non-typical way, meaning you are not just ripping through all those rounds at once. Because the individual shots do recharge, using this ability to open a fight is going to be the way to go. Starting off by getting a quick body shot on an enemy with your ult, and then pushing up with your weapons and your team, and for 10 seconds, players are going to be marked or highlighted, not scanned though, so you can't see them through walls, but you will be able to do an extra 15% or so damage to those enemy players, which is pretty good. Playing this way will conserve your ultimate in a big way, and it's going to let you get every little extra bonus when you are fighting a team. Vantage also shines with her tactical ability, the Bat. Echo can be sent out to 40 meters away, kind of like a Crypto's drone. Unlike Crypto's drone though, this Bat is actually going to follow Vantage's movement and stay within 50 to 60 meters, which means you don't always have to recall and reposition the drone as you move around. She also gets a double jump, which kind of is like a weaker Octane pad, so she can jump somewhere around 70 to 80 meters in distance, which is pretty nice for a tactical that does come back every 18 seconds. You'll want to use this ability specifically to ascend to high ground and keep a Vantage get it? Eye on your squad from height to then weaken enemies with your ultimate sniper or your other weapons. We are absolutely in a meta shift this season. One legend to look at is going to be Mad Maggie. Jury is out on how far she's going to be accelerated to the top of the game, but if you want a legend who is really a great counter to most legends with placement abilities, Mad Maggie is going to be it. Her ultimate Wrecking Ball now goes twice as far, meaning faster and further rotations, plus her ball will destroy most abilities like Rampart's walls and the big guy, Gibraltar's tactical bubble. This coupled with her tactical drill will for sure make her an anti-camp legend, and if you see a Mad Maggie and you are one of these defensive legends, you need to be extra concerned now. I don't know how much pub viability she will have, but if you're a ranked warrior, she's going to be a really great pick and you're going to want to use her. Since we did just talk about defensive legends, Newcastle is going to be one of those legends that had some serious love this season. He wasn't bad last season, but he definitely fell a little bit flat after his launch, as he didn't do too much that other legends didn't already do. That definitely changes with the season 14 buffs. The tactical shield alone now moves twice as fast, which means crossing open areas and being more supportive of your team is going to be possible now. Not to mention the shield got 150 damage protection buff, and if you couple this with the revive shield, you're going to need a dumb amount of ammo to break this shield and stop a revive. I confidently can say that Newcastle is the premier reviving legend. He can revive legends while moving even faster now, and being able to turn a little bit quicker just increases your mobility and chances of getting that teammate up. Newcastle is a serious legend you should take a look at if you previously were using Lifeline or Gibraltar. It would not be right if we didn't briefly talk about the legend who flew too close to the sun. Not going to get into all of it, but Valkyrie needs to be super aware of their fuel consumption and where you are ripping the skyward dive from. More fuel consumption puts her jetpack at an even bigger premium, and the lower peak from her ultimate means she can't get around as many big mountains as she previously could. Not to mention she launches upward a little bit slower, and her passive VTOL jets are a little bit slower, so you are just going to be more beamable now. All in all, Valkyrie might not be as much of a required pick, but I'd guess she's still going to be up there. The biggest tip for a Valk that I used to give was to be very evasive with her jetpack. This still applies, but the decrease in overall movement and increase in fuel consumption means you are going to be a little bit less mobile, and you need to be a little bit more aware of your positioning and your surroundings than you used to be. Whether you realized it or not, Fuse saw a nice little buff with the gold backpack getting some change-ups. Since the bag allows you to carry extra big healing items, aka 3 medkits, 3 batteries, and 2 Phoenix kits, Fuse should now be the one to get this gold backpack so he can carry more big heals while also carrying more grenades. Season 14 sees the introduction of a new type of beam, the laser beam or the laser sight. I know that was a terrible joke, but laser sights are actually pretty wild, and they 100% have changed the way SMGs specifically are going to be used in Apex. SMGs did get a range nerf since they do have no barrel stabilizers on them, but the laser sight is 1000% something that you need to get as soon as possible. This makes close range hipfire and tracking an absolute breeze and a menace for anyone that is on the other side of your weapons. My biggest tip is going to be to try and prioritize the laser sight for the R99, as the Volt is still a great mid-range type beam weapon even without a barrel stabilizer. The car does not get the laser sight, but the car is still going to be a top meta gun, as the damage per round is still a little bit higher and your damage output per mag is just better than the R99. The Wingman is now a sniper rifle. Not really, but I actually am kind of against this gun at the moment, and I'm not really recommending anyone use this thing over something like a 30-30 that does a huge amount more of damage with that skull piercer and has incredible range. One of the Wingman's greatest strengths used to be that it was a great precision gun, but it also was a way for you to carry less ammo in your inventory. Now that you do need more than double the amount of inventory space to carry the same amount of ammo, this kind of is a huge problem, and I think the longbow would be a much better sniper for you to carry. It also does a mediocre amount of damage with the skull piercer when people do have a purple helmet, which I think makes it very unrewarding if you are hitting headshots. The Wingman is still good, but it has lost a little bit of its luster. For the first time in what seems like a bajillion years, the level cap in Apex has been risen, which does mean you are going to be able to level up more, get more Apex packs, and this does garner the question of, how do you level up faster? I'm going to start by saying that you cannot beat the system too much in Apex. You really just got to put time in, but if you can, living as long as possible in the Battle Royale generally rewards the most amount of XP due to survival time being a huge deal when it does come to EXP gains. The other way to look at it is in arenas. If you are winning and slaying out arena matches ridiculously fast, you will level up pretty quickly as well. It's no secret that the ALGS popularized and brought back the Wizard Seer, and in a big way. This semi-forgotten legend, however, has a slight counter to him, and this is actually going to be Mirage now. Mirage decoys now show up on Seer's Heartbeat, which is not always going to be useful, but if a Mirage does play this properly, he is a direct counter to Seer now. Since Seer is pretty prevalent, I think this slightly does give Mirage a pretty large amount of upside, even though he is still not the greatest legend. Still waiting for that real buff or rework, but this kind of is a start. It's worth mentioning that with a new POI like Skulltown or Relic coming back into the game, the hype over the first few days or even the first week, it's going to be absolutely insane. If you want a 20 bomb, there's no better time than right now to try and capitalize on the amount of people landing here in the first few days. Other great spots to land for a ton of kills though are going to be Gauntlet and Market because they are very close and adjacent to Relic. Arcstar saw a pretty sizable nerf in the amount of damage upon stick going down to 10 from 40, and players no longer get stunned on the initial stick, which honestly is the bigger factor. This is actually a huge deal. You can now run out of the way after getting stuck, which means no more yelling and screaming to your team to get away from you in extreme panic as it does set in. All this being said, the tip of opening a fight with the Arcstar stick is still a massive way to win a fight nearly every time. Just note that you're not going to be able to follow up with the really easy beam right away since the enemy is going to be a little bit more mobile now. Looking back at Kings Canyon briefly, there's a few spots that I want to recommend that I think fly under the radar, plus a few spots to avoid. 2 recommended drop spots for those looking for a decent amount of loot, which may be less hot than normal, are going to be the small buildings to the north of Caustic Treatment and the buildings south of Market. Both of these spots usually have a fine amount of loot, nothing too crazy, but you'll be able to get some stuff here, usually uncontested, and then you will be able to rotate into one of the adjacent hot areas to third party and get kitted up very quickly. Spots I do recommend avoiding are going to be the far west side of Spotted Lake now. This is just really far out of the way, and the loot in Spotted Lake was also nerfed. Swamps I also feel is still pretty poor, and I think the loot here is very spread out and it takes forever to loot it up. I also believe that the pit and the bunker, while they're nostalgic, they are not really too great to land at. Season 14 sees crazy rank changes. And then I woke up from a dream. Not much on the ranked for Season 14 of Apex Legends other than to find that cozy corner, post up, and let the RP gains commence. But in all seriousness, diminishing returns from kills is removed, so if you can slay out the lobby like the true sweat that you are, you will be able to get more gains than the previous season. I still think the general meta of ranked right now is unchanged. Try to get a few kills early and then get as high placement as possible for a steady ranked climb. And this usually applies to anyone who is not in Masters or Predator lobbies. Never play with randoms. I hate it, and you probably do too. Hop into the community Discord. We have over 12,000 like-minded members in there, and we would absolutely love to have you. You can also ask me questions, and I can review your clips as well. The cage and hillside saw some sizable adjustments to prevent players from camping in these buildings or just getting held up in these spots. My biggest advice right now when it does come to these spots is to try avoid landing at them. Loot is not the greatest anymore. Well, it never really was, but this in conjunction with minimal cover makes for a pretty rough experience if anyone does land around you or above you. If you do see others landing here though, you could take advantage of this, so keep a close eye as to who is landing on these POIs. I do want to give a quick note of mention to the newly named POI of Basin, which was Relay. This reinvigorates the area in a Relay-esque type of fashion. The additional buildings here make it much easier and better to loot, and I think this spot is a pretty decent ranked pick or a third-party strategy if you are looking to go to Capacitor after. A huge thing that was left out of the official patch notes is going to be Horizon's Black Hole. It now takes friendly fire damage. This greatly nerfs her effectiveness with that Tactical Lift, Black Hole combo, and then following it up with an Arcstar. You may want to look at Thermites now. These still have some effectiveness and they won't do the explosive damage to the black hole, more or less just killing it right away. Not quite the same, but still a great way to cause even greater disorientation with this combo. Just be aware the black hole is not as good as it once was, and it never really was too top tier. Maybe not much of a tip, but the definitive most popular question that I do get asked is what are the best legends in Apex? It really depends on your playstyle. There is no one legend that does rule them all, but for Season 14, for ranked and pubs, my recommendations are going to be Valkyrie, Newcastle, Seer for ranked, and then Horizon and Valkyrie again, and Loba for pubs, as all of these legends have great fighting power, team support, or defensive capabilities, and they will be at the top of the game in Season 14 of Apex. We've talked a ton about meta changes, and we are not done yet. One thing that I cannot leave out is the crafting meta. I'm ecstatic for this change, as it's going to speed up what was one of my, I'll just say, least favorite or slowest parts of Apex. If you aren't aware, teammates will now be able to harvest the crafting materials from the node things for the entire team, meaning one person grabs it and everyone else individually gets the reward. This is a massive team buff for those that are landing and coordinating loot runs, and it's an extremely welcomed thing. It adds another small layer of depth to the teamwork aspect that really was not present before, and I think that's never a bad thing. You know what you gotta do. Check out this video for a massive 101 tips to master your Apex Legends game. Happy gaming, Legends.